Cutting's easy, all you have to do is not eat. Bulking's way harder. You have to force feed yourself until you can't anymore, and then keep going. You guys have eating disorders. Competitive ones, apparently.
Why do people that don't go to the gym always...
The fitness community on TikTok has been having a fun time with this video over the past week or so. I've been seeing people outside of the fitness space responding to it as well. There's been things said by both sides that kind of rub me the wrong way or really oversimplify the entire discussion. What's that? The platform created for short videos and prioritizes user retention is not suited for complex and nuanced discussion? How is this fucking possible? The question that's at our feed at the moment is, do competitive bodybuilders / powerlifters have eating disorders? The American Psychiatric Association describes an eating disorder as eating disorders are behavioral conditions characterized by severe and persistent disturbances in eating behaviors and associated distressing thoughts and emotions. When we look at the standard eating habits of someone on prep for either a bodybuilding competition or powerlifting competition, you are likely to see some kind of bulking phase into a cutting phase. Bulking is when someone is eating in a caloric surplus over a prolonged period of time with the goal of increasing muscle mass and or strength. Cutting is when someone is eating in a calorie deficit over a prolonged period of time with the goal of decreasing their body fat percentage while retaining as much strength and or muscle as possible. There are a number of factors to determine what is a healthy amount of weight to gain or lose while bulking or cutting. Quick interject. In the original TikTok, he mentions a very extreme overeating person in the comments or whatever. And that is definitely an extreme case and it's an outlier sort of thing, but people are taking that as a sort of baseline, which is where we're sort of running into problems. And as time has gone on, research has shown that an extreme surplus doesn't necessarily mean you're going to gain more muscle. You're likely just to gain more fat. As for large deficits, if you cut your calories too much, your metabolism will adjust, which is more likely to hinder your progress than aid it in any way. The TikTok at the center of this wildfire starts with the user explaining how he found a fitness post where lifters were talking about what was easier, bulking or cutting. While I don't know if he saw the original video I had stitched or a different one from a different creator, I had seen something similar. If we go by the statements he was referencing, that would not fit our laid out definition of what an eating disorder is. When someone is bulking for a competition, they must eat in a surplus, but they also must lift enough to drive either muscle growth, strength growth, or both. This increased activity means more energy is used, meaning they need more calories to actually keep putting on weight. This leads some people to have to eat a rather large amount of food to gain any weight at all. And for some people, they simply don't have the hunger levels to eat that much without thinking about it. It becomes a task. When I stitched a video about this, I mentioned how for me personally, I have no real problems eating in a surplus. My hunger levels normally allow me to easily eat enough to gain weight, even if I'm eating an overall quality diet. But as you can guess, cutting or just losing weight in general is something I struggle a little bit more with. But people are different and our struggles are similar but overall unique. Joe Stanek, a powerlifting coach I follow on TikTok, had a good response to this video, and he is someone who has recovered from an eating disorder.
Professional athletes do crazy things all the time when they want to be the best. Esports athletes play video games for hours every single day. So you're going to do things that don't seem normal. And the biggest difference between an actual eating disorder and what bodybuilders do is you can't turn the eating disorder off.
When you are bulking or cutting, you are regimented. And when you are done doing either one, you can just return to your maintenance calories. But with that being said, it can be a slippery slope. One of the stitches to the TikTok compared the bulking and cutting cycle to yo-yo dieting, which I just don't think is a fair comparison at all.
The cutting bulking cycles is no different than just diet cycling, where you're constantly losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining. Like research that shows that your body actually functions better in a maintenance phase than it does constantly trying to lose weight.
Yo-yo dieting involves massive calorie deficits due to some highly restrictive diets, and then the person comes off of that diet and then binges / returns to their old eating habits. On a proper bulking cutting cycle, the deficits these people are going into are not extreme. Unless the individual is a competitor, they likely are not doing this constantly. They are likely eating at maintenance for long periods of time. Obviously, when we get into the more just high level bodybuilding and everything, that is already unhealthy. And the things that they go to push their bodies to the extreme could very well be categorized almost into the eating disorder category, but it is still regimented. There is a difference because it is not emotionally entwined. It can become emotionally entwined is the thing. She mentions 2 studies in her TikToks. The first, not actually a study, but an article talks about once an individual loses weight, the body typically reduces the amount of energy expended at rest during exercise and daily activities while increasing hunger. This combination of lower energy expenditure and hunger creates a perfect metabolism storm of conditions for weight gain. The article then links an endocrine review to support its point, which then links to another study. And nowhere am I seeing anything about repeated cycles of weight loss and weight gain, which is what this woman was talking about in her TikTok. The review talks about this weight regain, and it mentions this perfect storm because since your energy expenditure is reduced even more than it should be by what we think, it makes it easier to binge and gain weight back, potentially more than what you lost. Our bodies don't know the reason we're losing weight, even if we're coming from an obese weight. So it will fight us to keep homeostasis at that higher weight by reducing your energy expenditure. Once you get to a point where you want to maintain your weight, you have to be careful to balance out your intake and your body will return to a somewhat normal state. This process is what fuels binging after dieting and, general weight regain after dieting, especially after more restrictive diet practices, which are commonly associated with yo-yo dieting. Bulking and cutting do not always happen one right after the other. Some people might bulk or cut and run at maintenance calories for years before they decide to try to lose or gain weight again. There are a lot of assumptions made in the arguments coming from people outside of the fitness space looking in. The only statement of weight cycling is within the news article. Quick tidbit. The news article mentions the increased risk of death, but the study that they are mentioning in the article does not mention that. It just is talking about the mechanisms at play for weight regain after losing weight. Nothing about increased risk of death. And then they mention at the bottom that even despite the potential negatives of weight cycling, the health benefits of weight loss overall overshadow them. The second study has nothing concrete. It's mostly hypothesis, and it even mentions that there's data that supports it and data that doesn't, along with major negative effects stemming from more extreme fluctuations, which most normal bulk cuts are sustained periods of weight change, not sudden ones. If you're going to cite an article and try to make an argument, please look through your sources a little bit better. Don't just find a headline that aligns with your viewpoint and slam it into a TikTok. One of the things the articles does get right is mentioning that athletes in sports that basically require weight cycling, like the UFC, are at a higher risk of developing eating disorders. But the thing is, for things like the UFC, that is the extreme of the extreme. That is they are being monitored by doctors, by professionals, and everything. This is not your common gym bro doing a bulk cut cycle. And I also want to just reiterate that does not mean someone competing in these sports has an eating disorder by default. Many athletic pursuits by nature are just not healthy at the top level, and that will show in their dietary choices at times. They are competing under specific rules and must meet specific weight goals to compete, but these are also things that are not going to maintain forever. The stress from competition and prep can fuel an eating disorder. But assuming an individual has one from surface level information, like many people do online, is just dumb. That being said, fitness people, gym talk, dude bros, stop acting all high and mighty when this conversation comes up. There are many TikToks like this one.
What we're finding is that teenage males in particular have this obsession with muscular physique and clean eating that is presenting in a very similar way to traditional anorexia,
where people take the idea that the lifestyle could potentially lead to an eating disorder as cancel culture or just an attack on their character. And it's when people are saying this, some people are obviously saying it with negative intentions, but most people are not looking through that lens, I think. Bro, they just don't have the discipline like us, bro. Extraordinary results scare ordinary people. It's not a long shot to say that someone who focuses greatly on their food intake, even if they are goal-oriented, can develop an eating disorder due to a number of factors. I have been very careful about how I view food because I have an addictive personality, and I tend to obsess about things, and I get frustrated when I don't meet my goals at times. I spelled meat, M-E-A-T, in this Word document. I also, as you know if you've watched some of my other videos, I was obese at one point, and I have a fear of returning to obesity because I do like the current weight I'm at, even though I am interested in doing bodybuilding and everything. But I am extremely careful about how I view food and how I interact with food in a sense. I don't want to create a problem for myself. I have had issues with binge eating before. What I'm trying to say is there are people on both sides of this argument that just need to take a step back and realize they are looking at snapshots of people's lives through the internet and not the whole picture. We need to stop trying to diagnose people with eating disorders through TikTok comments. And then when you're faced with people saying your eating habits could be perceived as disordered, let's not shit on people who actually have eating disorders by talking about discipline. It's a way more complex issue than that, and you're just downplaying, you're just being an idiot. Eating disorders are terrible to live with and are hard to get under control. You can develop an eating disorder in a number of different ways. The regimented and mindful eating that is involved with fitness can help someone who has an eating disorder become free from them, while for others, they can develop them due to the sort of practices around, fitness and food. So my final answer is no. The majority of bodybuilders and powerlifters likely don't have eating disorders. Do I think people in the fitness space and outside of the fitness space need to react more constructively when this conversation is brought up? Yes, and there were many creators on TikTok who tackled this in a good way, I think. But when most of the comments and stitches are just gym bros acting smug, it's a bad look for the community in a sense. So what's your opinion? Leave it in the comments. Follow me on social media. Send me a DM, whatever. I'm down to talk about this subject with anybody because I think it's an important subject to talk about. And I think people really, the way gym culture reacts to being critiqued is really not okay. But, if you like the video, make sure to hit a like, subscribe if you want to see more content from me. I'm making more content all this month. I have a podcast that I just started. I'm streaming on Twitch a lot. So follow my Twitch, huntertpk. Lots of videos coming out. And yeah, have a nice day.